Welcome to the Dream On podcast. I am Travis Gentry, and I am here with my guest, Julia Gentry.
It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been a while.
It
Thanks
has
for
been.
joining us again.
You look great.
Thank you. So do you.
So how we start at every podcast is we ask each other ridiculous questions that have nothing to do with each episode. So today it's my turn. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fire away.
If your life was represented in a song, what song would that be and why?
Oh, man.
I stumped him.
So many songs are like flashing in my mind's eye.
Snoop Dogg? Is it a Snoop Dogg song?
Nate Dogg and Warren G.
People are like, who? Yeah, you're too young to know that.
Open the eyes to my heart, Lord. Man, some of the songs that I listen to, but some of them, I would say one of them is probably Garth Brooks, The River.
Tell us, sing it. Do it.
It's
Come on our last episode we talked about pride and ego, so let's just let
A dream is like a river ever flowing as it changes. A dreamer's just a vessel that must follow where it goes.
Why? Why is that your song?
Because I feel like that's how I just approach life, is like a river changes, and over a long period of time, it can actually change how it actually flows. And so it's like, just go with the flow. And what we've learned through some of, the personal development and, life happens for you and not to you. And so it's all your perception. And so it's like, and you also get to dictate it too.
Yeah.
So you can get off the river if you want.
Okay.
But I enjoy the river and
you can change course.
Seeing where it takes me, knowing also that God is with me and for me.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just a combination of everything, of like, when I look at waterfalls or when I look at rivers, like there's just such an abundance and energy.
If you really want to experience life at its fullest, just do anything with Travis, because the way he looks at things and admires waterfalls or lakes or rivers or valleys or mountains, I honestly just wish for a minute that I could see it through your eyes. Because there's times that we'll go places and I'll be like, that's pretty. And he's like in a totally different zone. I'm like ready for the next thing and he's looking at it and I'm like, what does he see that I'm not seeing?
Well, I think, and it's such a good, like, really stop the next time you see a river or the ocean or something, and you're like, what abundance there is. Like, this river or this waterfall, and the last one that we went to was amazing, but you're like, that runs 24 hours a day, like year round, 365.
Yeah.
And there's water coming down over the fall. At some capacity.
Yeah.
And there's seasons where it's heavier, but it's always going. And you're like, that's how our world is.
Thank you, Garth Brooks, for just
and then the score.
In case we never get to cheers you.
And then the
Brooks.
score. What's that one?
Born for This?
Yeah, Born for This. So I listen to a couple of them. I listen to them sometimes when I work out or before I work out, just to get me in that mental. And some of them are not like, some of them are like, have a good beat, but some of them are like that slow, like just to have you stop and recognize how awesome life is.
You guys, Travis is psycho because he doesn't listen to like Rage Against the Machine when he's lifting till failure. He listens
Once
to
in a great
Garth
while.
Brooks and worship music.
I'll listen to a little worship music.
Okay, let's jump in. Today we're talking about less is more. Look at my coffee mug. Is that the cutest thing you've ever seen?
That's so cute.
Today we're going to talk about less is more, which is fascinating because that's not the world we live in.
No.
More is more is more is more.
And how do I get more?
How do I get more? I want more.
And I can have more now. And
Now.
then I can put that more in my garage.
More.
And then I need more space. So I'm going to go get a storage because I have more.
And I want to keep up with the people around me. I want to have more, do more, see more. More. So today we're actually going to talk about that less is more, which is kind of going to be a little bit, going against the grain. salmon swimming upstream.
And I think it's also putting it in context though too, of like there are certain things and situations, and I think the overarching message that I want to make sure I'm communicating is like less is more, like focused attention. And we get so distracted by so many options or so many things, or we think we need something and we really don't, or we think we want to pursue something but we really don't. It's like, I remember the story that we were talking about as far as, someone wanted to be like a rock and roll star, but they didn't like or want to play the guitar. And you're like, how do you become a rock, like you like the idea. So it's sometimes we just have this scatterbrain of like, oh, if I had that, then I would be happy. If I did this, then I'd be happy. Or if I had one more of this or 10 more of that, or, and it could be clothes or whatever it is. So I think it's just, for me, it's less is more, and the things that make you happy and bring you joy, focus on those.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I could communicate one message today, it would be summarized, and we need to care more about less. I think that we care a lot about a lot. We care what they think, what he thinks, what she thinks. Like, we care so much about what everybody else thinks that we've lost what we think. And so now we're caring about the weather, and we care about what the news, and we care about everybody's Instagram feed, and we care about what somebody said to us 10 years ago, and we care about what someone's going to say about us tomorrow. Like, we care about so much that we've lost sight of what we actually care about. And so I think today it's like leaning into a conversation of like, who says more is better? Because if you really look at our lives, when we start to go after more, then we want more, and then we want more, and then we want more. And now all of a sudden, what went from hope, like, oh my gosh, I could have more in this life, to complete depression and anxiety and frustration. And I think that the idea of more is, right, more money, more problems, right? So I think it's just a conversation worth having. And unpacking, because here we are in our home in Bentonville, Arkansas, and we've moved our entire family across the country for the, 10th time.
We've gone we've gone from, like, if you look at some of our path, like from Colorado to Arizona, back to Colorado to Idaho to Bend, Oregon, to Florida, to, we've spent a little bit of time in Texas and then North Carolina, and then back up to Oregon. Like, we've been all over.
Make us sound psycho.
All over the country. But there again, that's what I want to communicate. That's important to us.
100%.
And so that's where we spend our time and energy. And so within that, we have to say no to a lot of other things that would be distracting and not bring the joy.
Well, and what's so funny about this and fascinating, and I'm sure if you're a parent, any one of us has had this conversation with our kids, like here we are packing again, and we start to create boxes around Goodwill, we're giving it away, and what's going with us. And as we're going, and I'm guilty of this too, I'm not even going to throw my kids under the bus for a second. I'm going to throw me under the bus, okay? And here, granted, we just moved a year ago prior to this. So this is not like we've been in a home for 10 years and what we've accumulated 10 years. This is 1 year, right? But I'm looking at my sweatshirts, and I'm like, oh, I haven't worn that in a year. I should give that away. No, I think I'll wear it. I'll probably wear it. Surely I'll wear it.
I like it. I want the option.
I want the option to wear it. And so then I'm like forcing it into more boxes to take with me on a journey of a new place that I've never been, taking old stuff that I've never used, and then I'll throw my kids under the bus. Now I'm putting stuff in bags, hoping that they're not going to notice, because it needs to go to Goodwill, because they've literally never played with the toy. And when they see me put that toy in that bag, immediately, you know what they say?
That's my favorite. I've been looking for that. You haven't ever.
And then you're like, so I think we're just fresh off the heels of also realizing that like less is more, and we can't take with us all the things that we think we want to make us feel better that we forgot that we had based upon someone else's thought process. That I just think it's a needed conversation, because the more, I think, is really draining us as people.
For sure. I mean, I don't feel like I do, but some people that I've watched get caught up in the busy. If I'm busy, I'm productive. And if I'm busy, I'm like, I can't stop and think too long. because I don't really love what I'm doing, but I'm going to keep doing it anyway because I'm so busy. And I feel like I'm productive, but I'm really not productive.
100%, right? Or like me, and I've told this, 4 years ago when I wanted to build strength, and I didn't ask you how to do it, which obviously, if you look at Travis, I should have. But I just was like, I'm just going to do more of what I've been doing, right? So I just added more squats and more. I was running further, and I was doing more of all the same things, thinking I was going to get different results, and all it resulted in was burnout. Like I was exhausting myself because I was doing more for the sake of more, thinking it was going to give me what I wanted, only to realize that it was draining me. Right? Or like for the kids, even when they said the other day, they're like, oh, I want more sugar. And you and I talk about this all the time around, it's that 80-20 rule of 80% of the time we eat really well, but 20% of the time, we have some fun. And here they go, we want more sugar. And we find ourselves saying, hey, buddies, even more of a good thing isn't a good thing, right? Like we don't want more sugar, but sugar wants more sugar. Money wants more money. Success wants more success. And then all of a sudden we lose ourselves to that. Even realize that even good, we don't want more of a good thing. It's like vitamins. I take vitamins. Malachi took his vitamins the other day and he came running in and was like, Mom, why is my pee yellow? Like, oh, you have to explain to him, well, your body absorbed everything it needed to, and it's going to flush out all the things that it doesn't need, right? So more vitamins aren't actually good, right? Too much water isn't good. And
like your body's not going to use it. But I think on a bigger level, and I'll give an example of what I've learned over the last, really how I approach real estate too. Like less has always been more. I've approached the real estate and the flipping business, and that's just how I like it, of doing less deals, but looking for deals that had more profit, as opposed to doing more deals where people would do them, but the profit was like half of what I was looking for, knowing I'd have to do 2 of those deals relative to 1 of the deals, and be patient and know that it's going to come, because if I get sucked into doing too many smaller deals, I miss the big potential opportunities, as opposed to just waiting for the big opportunities, knowing that they're out there.
Well, and I think the problem with this is really the root of this mindset, which is scarcity, right? If I want more money, more success, more, and it's never enough, right? Or I'm afraid to wait for the perfect deal, or I'm not going to hold out for what I really want most. It always comes back to a scarcity thing. So it's like I'm chasing more, asking it to give me something it was never designed to give me, right? More security, more stability, make me feel more valuable as a person. And so I think the root of this problem is actually scarcity. Like we're seeking abundance.
It really is, because yes.
Like we're seeking abundance in the more, like we want to feel more abundant. But what we're running from is scarcity. So what's happening is we're just creating this perpetual fear of scarcity while we're trying to pursue abundance, only landing with more scarcity, even if we had to.
Well, then it comes back to the busy.
Yeah.
Because if I'm busy, then I feel productive. But if I really look at it, I'm actually less productive.
Totally.
As opposed to, building relationships and having good, solid relationships, as opposed to hundreds of relationships that have no depth to it.
If you even think about that, if it's a scarcity or abundance play, if you think about why we hold on to things, well, I don't want to tithe because I want to keep what I have. I don't want to give this shirt away because I'm afraid I won't get more, right? I don't want to give of my time because it's all that I have. So it's so interesting because the law of abundance, which is give, to your point last episode when we talked about, no, not last episode, hello. Right now, Garth Brooks, the river and the waterfalls. Dear Lord Almighty, is the abundance. Like you give because you're being given to. Like it's that law of abundance. Yeah. But I think what happens is that the reason I'm not doing it is because I'm actually attached to scarcity and fear, and so I can't give because I'm not actually coming from a place of abundance.
100%. Yeah, and it's like kind of what we talked about in the last podcast. If you're looking in the rearview mirror, if you're looking at the past and you're holding on to that, there is no room. Like if I have 2 hands and I'm holding on to 2 things that I really want, that served me in the past but is not going to serve me moving forward, I don't have any more capacity or room to grab the thing I really want moving forward.
So if you could define abundance, how would you define it?
How would I define abundance? In what area?
I mean, just in general, right? Like if we're now all of a sudden talking about not even more for more or less is more or any of those things, but now we're really talking about the root of this, which is scarcity versus abundance. How would you define those?
I mean, I think it's more than what I need. Like that's abundance. Like that's, anything that's more than what I like. There again, I have multiple pairs of pants and shirts and stuff, but I only really need one. Like, but there's so much out there that I can have. I think money, you could look at it and say, like, are all my needs met? Can I go and do anything I want? Can I go out to eat? Can I buy something if I need it? If a medical bill comes up, can I afford it? Like that's abundance. Like I have more than enough. And so that's what it would mean to me. Like if I have reserve, like backup, then like I live in a world of abundance.
Yeah.
And it's all around me.
Which then I think is going to, I think that opens up a whole can of worms, because if I'm someone who doesn't have my needs met, right? Like I don't have more than enough money, or I have more month than paycheck, right? Or I don't have my emotional needs met or my literal needs met, then it's so easy to go to this place of, well, that must be nice for you, right? Like, but the world I live in is scarce or is an abundant and it's not an overflow. And how I would look at that, having been in both shoes, is that I think abundance is always a conversation around who's the source, right? Like I think that we as people live in a world that we are plugged into all the things around us, resources, money, food, house, shelter, right? Like we live in a physical world, right? But the Bible says we don't live in this world, right? Like we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. We live in this world, we don't live of this world. So right out of the gate, we are already called to be connected to the right source and then use resources. So I think the slippery slope here, and I've seen it in my own life, is that I actually take my eyes off of the source, which is abundance, right? We serve a God that is more than enough. He is unlimited, omnipotent, omnipresent. To your point, there is no beginning and no end. There is an abundance. When I'm connected to Him as my source, then in theory, I can use the resources around me from a place of abundance because I'm actually connected to a true source.
And it's also like money specifically, it comes back to like, if you, and I've had this in my own life where when I'm chasing money to chase money, it tends to run further, faster away from me, as opposed to, no, I'm gonna go within. And what is the problem? What is the thing around me that God put in me to go serve to the world? And that's when it comes back to me financially. Because we chase money, and if you really think about it, it's a piece of paper that was made up by people that really has no value. It's just a value that we put to it, has a $1, $5, $100, whatever it is.
Totally.
And it's being devalued like, every day. But we chase that as though that is our source, our God. And there again, the root of all evil is not money. It's the love of money. And so as I've seen it in my own life, if I'm chasing the dollar to get more dollars, to think I'm going to get more of whatever it is that I want a new car or whatever it is, as opposed to saying like, okay, God, who am I, and what do you want me pursuing and doing with the God-given talents and skills and abilities I have? And how do I serve that to more people? Or how do I leverage that skill? And then money comes as a byproduct.
Bingo. So to me, like, that is the definition of abundance, right? Like, I think, and I'm not saying that this is easy, right? When it comes real life and right, I got a bill to pay and I have groceries I need to buy. And I'm not saying that this is easy, but right, it's a completely different shift that could ultimately change the way that I think we do life, right? If I go less is more, which means I need to be connected to my source, knowing that He has given me everything that I need to accomplish the work that he's asked me to accomplish, which is where we're going to feel alive, which is where we're going to feel free, not because I have more money in the bank or no problems or any of those things. It's just I'm connected to the thing that he's asked me to do because I'm connected to him as my source. Then from the overflow of that comes everything else, right? Like it even says in the book of Matthew, chase after heaven and all these other things will be added to you. In one translation, it actually says all these other little petty things will be added. When you just chase heaven's realities, all of these other things will be added to you. Why? Because to your point, I'm connected to the source. And now I'm actually praying prayers of God. What do you want me to do with the gifts that you've given me, my time, my talent, my energy? From the overflow of that identity comes everything else. You know what I'm saying? Now I can use the resources around me. I can ask for help. I can learn about money. I can understand. Travis just drops a bomb of like money's being devalued. Someone I know, I know someone sitting there going, what did he just say? You know, like now I can learn about how to get into physical shape. I can learn how to, right, move into the direction of my dreams and having the house that I want to, right, all this, but I'm not attached to all of the resources as though they're my source.
Yes. Yeah. And I think I see it in your business and in what I'm doing too, where it's like watching you and you've been in this, growth coaching for quite some time now, and you've done a lot of one-on-one coaching, and now you're shifting the business model through all of that practice and preparation to a model that you can serve more people, and natural byproduct is that you're actually going to make a lot more money.
100%.
But it's not about the money, it's about the impact that you're pursuing.
Yep, 100%.
That's so good.
And I think that's because, to your point, what I did, if I really were to go, I am not perfect, it's taken me 10 years to start to get to that point, is that I have to daily, truly daily, reconnect with God, you are my source. And I'm doing this because you've asked me to do this. Like, yes, the cry of my heart is to create an impact. But if I'm not careful, that could be a slippery slope, because if I make an impact, I'm more important or I'm more special, or right, I've done something great with my life. And so I have to be really careful of that too. But is when I connect with him every day as my source, and then I do the thing that I feel like he's calling me to do next, the byproduct of that is abundance. And abundance isn't always that I'm perfectly resourced. It's just that all of a sudden, to your point, I get into this place of flow. And so now all of a sudden God can start doing what he needs to do. People can hear the message clearer, right? Like you actually start to flow with it. Thank you, Garth Brooks, right? And you, instead of trying to control it, you move around it, right? You're so surrendered to the process that it's not like, oh, you hit a wall and you hit a rock and you're done. No, the river just goes around it, right? It forges another pathway around whatever the obstacle is.
And you're probably not there again. You're not resourced because you're not equipped. And so there again, are you not being resourceful enough to gain the skills that you need to be able to do it?
So good, which we're going to talk about on the next podcast.
Oh, good.
Yeah, right. The idea, and I think you're right. If you are not resourced right now, it's because you're not equipped with some sort of tool. And that's just information in my mind, because all of us can make it mean something about ourselves, like I did something wrong, or I don't know how to do anything with money, or I'm horrible at marriage, or I'm just fat, or like it's easy for us to go in that shame, blame, guilt. But I think if we keep it really tactical, it's just simply, oh, I'm not equipped with a tool, but it doesn't mean that it's not out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's all around us. And there again, like watching people from the outside, and it's like, a couple people that have multiple jobs. They're limiting themselves by those jobs and the hours that they have to work and trading their time for money, which I'm not a big believer in. I think you only have you have 24 hours in a day. And if you have and are working 12 hours or 20 hours a day, you can only work that if you're exchanging your time for money. You get $20, $30, $50 an hour, you can only get so much. So to me, it's understanding and being equipped of like, how do I leverage my skills, my talents, my abilities? They're again, coming back to whatever I'm doing, whether it's serving the world around me or what I've learned too in like trading, like equity trading. At first I was in 30 some trades, as opposed to saying, no, I'm going to do less and I am going to make more, because the trades I'm going to be in, I'm going to have bigger positions, but I'm going to be more prepared for those positions because I've been watching them and not just taking any kind of trade to hope to make it, but leaning the probabilities in my direction. And so with that, and we've talked about it in different podcasts, if I can make more, I can give more.
Totally. But then I think that comes back to a trust game, right? Like, I think then abundance, I have to go, where am I plugged into? Well, I'm probably plugged into the thing that I quote unquote trust the most. So if I'm plugged into money as my source, then I basically, it's my God, right? If I'm plugged into my appearance the most, then that's my God. That's what I'm trusting the most, right? Which is why I think a lot of us are struggling with anxiety or depression, because we're plugged into the wrong thing, asking it to give us something it wasn't designed to give us, right? And all of us know that even at an unconscious level. And so I think that some of this is, where am I putting my trust? And ultimately, the only place that we can stand on is putting our trust back in God as our source, knowing that He's the beginning from the end. And even though in this moment there doesn't feel like there's enough financial or enough love or enough, like we get in this enoughness, there's just not enoughness, right? Where we disqualify who God is because of our temporary circumstances, which makes us human. By the way, like, struggle bus, been there before as well. And I have to check myself on a regular basis when I get there, but is to actually go, oh my gosh, this has nothing to do with money or not money or not. Like, no, where am I putting my trust?
And there's so many, and I think we've talked about it too, but there's so many, there's books on it and all that. It's like, but how do you wake up? And where do you put your time? Like, right when you wake up, what are, if you analyze and sit back and just write down, like, what do? You probably do the same things almost every day. But are you spending time with yourself and with God, whether it's prayer or meditation or, being grateful, or, there's different practices to be still. For you to go into the day, not on your own will, not on your own strength, but by like the wisdom from God.
So good. So my life has changed these last 6 weeks. I wish I could say 6 years.
6 days.
You guys.
This morning.
And I've told this before, but when you sat down on the couch that day and you said to me, when are you going to let the world hear your voice, and when are you going to be bold? And then you honored my bold, and you just said, like, I love your bold. I want to hear your song. I want to hear your voice. It evoked something in me that got me going. And then, now being coached in a way that this guy is resilient on his morning habits. And I've never liked routine or habits of any kind, probably because I don't like being told what to do, if I'm being totally honest. I like to wake up and decide, like, I've always been that way. I generally don't have this routine of my schedule. I don't have this healthy habit morning. Like, I've just, and it's not been bad. Like, I'm not getting horrible results, but I finally was like, all right, well, I'm not getting what I really want, so I'm going to lean in here. These last 6 weeks, getting up at 4:45, putting the right things in my body, sitting down, I do a heart set, mindset, gratitude check every single morning. And I sit down and I do the exact things that you're saying. I reminisce on how good the day was before, even the hard things. That push-up was really hard, or, I had this conversation with the kids and it felt really hard, but it brought us closer, all the way to the really good things. Like, I literally sit down and I do that to just, and feel the gratitude in my body. Then I lean in and I go, God, who are you today to me? And I just sit quietly, to your point. Like, I just go, God, who are you to me? And then, God, remind me of who I am to you. Every day I do that. And sometimes I sit there for an hour, sometimes it's 10 minutes. And then the next question I will ask is, what do you want me to do about it today? This is honestly where all of my social posts now come from, is just in that quiet space of, God, what do you want me to do about it today? And then just trusting. Sometimes that's when I post. Sometimes that's when I write in my journal. Sometimes that's when I write my next chapter in my Devo. Sometimes I get up and I organize the thing for the kids' school. Like, it's from the overflow of getting connected to Him as my source has honestly changed, like, the DNA and the energetic charge of my body all day long. And I please hear me when I say I'm not doing life perfectly. Like, I'm still in my Hulk moments every once in a while. I still find myself wanting to control, but it's like I go, wait, that's not how I started my day. This is not who God says that I am. This is not how I need to show up. Like, it's a real-time awareness that's changed everything.
And looking at the days that you're like, that was a good day. Well, why was it a good day? And I think for me, I know when I start to get off, because I start to break that habit.
Like
of
it works so well, we stop doing it.
Yeah, or becomes, something throws you off, whether it's moving across the country and waking up in, hotel rooms with kids all over you, and you slowly break that habit, and then you slowly get off, and then you're like beating yourself up, and you're like, why do I feel this way? And then you think about it, you're like, well, when did I feel good? Why did I feel good? And then if you've never felt good, then you're like, okay, obviously what I'm doing is not working, so I need to do something new. Mm-hmm. And I think the time in the morning, if you can wake up and just practice small habits of 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and have that quiet time, or get your body moving and doing some, push-ups or burpees, or do something to get the blood flowing, and then sit there and be grateful for what you do have, and what is it that where you're going, and get that wisdom of like, okay, like, God is with you all throughout the day. But I also think like there's times where it's like, just sit and be quiet. Mm-hmm. Don't talk at God, let God download into you.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so many moments where it's like we tend to just talk at God and then go on our day. Mm-hmm. That's fine. Say a prayer, pray for people, but then sit.
Yeah.
And don't think about anything, don't say anything. And I get the best time after I work out.
Yep.
Because then the energy's flowing, and I think that we're made up of energy.
Totally. Well, and it's funny that you say that, because I think what we're doing is we're just, to your point, God is always with us, but do we see him? And I think these quiet mornings is not even to get this divine revelation in the moment, though sometimes that does happen, is to prime ourselves to be paying attention to what he's saying and what he's doing. Mm-hmm. So when real life happens, we're instantly go back to these new patterns that go, oh, wait a minute, what is God doing in all of this? And I'm attaching to money, or I'm attaching to, more stuff, or I'm attached to all the clothes in my closet, or I just am holding on to things. Like, now what does that mean? Oh, I'm actually unplugging from the source, and I'm plugging into all of these resources. Stop. Mm-hmm. Right? But if I didn't plug into the source in the morning, then of course I'm going to ask for money to give me something, and fame to give me something, and the likes on social media to give me something, because I've unplugged from my source.
Mm-hmm. And like, there again, we tend to talk about the things that I feel like are really important in everyday life, which is physical fitness, mm-hmm. and mental health and well-being, and what you feed yourself. And it's like, you see so many people that start and stop diets, or start something because it's a fad, and then like, well, it didn't work. Well, it wasn't that it didn't work. You didn't work what you're supposed to do, mm-hmm. and stay there long enough.
Oh, that's so good.
And so it's kind of the less is more. Yeah. So there's so many different ways to get in shape. And then you've got to dial it down on, how do you want to get in shape? Do you want muscles? Do you want tone? Do you just want to lose some fat? Like, do you just want to be healthy? You want to be flexible? Like, what is it that's important to you? And then seek out the wisdom that someone has, but then you've got to follow the plan. Yeah. And so it comes back to less is more. Don't try to do all these different activities thinking and you want this result. But if you look at it and you sit back and you're like, I'm not going to get that result, or it's not sustainable for me.
So good. And then I think immediately people go, well, discipline. I think that discipline is a huge issue. And truly, again, this never been my favorite word. It has felt too controlled. I don't like to be controlled. I don't like to be told what to do. But when I started to study that word these last 6 weeks, again, I wish I could say 6 years, like that's just not a word I would have used to describe myself. Mm-hmm. And it's one that now, as I'm leaning in, it actually means revelation. So when you, let me say it this way, the Bible says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. Sound mind means discipline and revelation. So sound mind, which is I'm disciplined on less is more, right? I've actually taken my attention off of the more for the more, or all of the things, or whatever it is, mm-hmm. that my sound mind can be focused on less because I have revelation. Mm-hmm. That started changing everything, because in theory, now I don't have to focus on trying to quote unquote have a sound mind or be more focused or be more disciplined. No, get my eye on the thing. The mm-hmm. less is more, right? Like the revelation of what I want most. That should create this awakening within you to go, oh my gosh, I want that mm-hmm. really bad. Mm-hmm. That drives my discipline.
Yeah.
Like that gets me up in the morning. Why I do my quiet time now? Because I love being with God. I love being Him connected to my source because it helps me to run out my day towards what I want all day long. So now I don't, quote unquote, need to be disciplined. I'm connected to my revelation.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And Jacko Ray says it in discipline equals freedom. And we've had it up on our board that we have, and we changed it around with different words and sayings and quotes, and it's like, it is so true. Like, discipline really does, the right discipline creates true freedom and peace.
Totally.
And if you can have that time and that process, there again, it could be if you work the night shift or whatever. Like, to me, I'm not big on like, you have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and do. And that may work for that person, but you may wake up at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock and you don't start your day until later because you don't go to bed until 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, you've got to figure that out for you.
Yeah.
Or right before you go to bed, there again, like, is it the quiet calm of your mind that you need to not be on your phone or watching TV and just let God speak to you and process the day and show gratitude at night? Like, you've got to figure that out. I think there's something special in the mornings and getting your blood flow, so it's a little quick workout or do something, get your body moving, but then it's a little bit of quiet time no matter what, and it could be 5 minutes.
I agree.
I mean, everybody has a little different approach to it, so you've got to find your way, but it's just important. And I think for us, as we talk through this podcast, and it's really just look at your life in general, and you're like, where could I maybe say no to the things that aren't getting me to where I want to go, and it's not promoting the life and the person that I want to become. And you'll start to weed out those things, and you'll start to understand, oh wow, like, less is more.
So
like,
good.
if I'm better at these few things, more efficient, more effective, I'm going to be happier. I'm going to be more free in those moments by not trying to do all these other.
Totally. And then if you think about that, even from when you actually start to work out and you lose the weight, less is more. Like, weighing less starts to go, oh my gosh, I feel freer, right? Or we've talked with so many people who, when they start to actually clean out their house, right, the closet hoarders that they've just been adding to, the minute that you get rid of all those things and you just surrender and go, okay, I'm willing to get rid of the things that I'm holding on to, you feel freer. You know, like, it's so interesting. The thing that you find yourself holding on to today, like you said, like this, that you're just
you need to
manhandling. You know,
maybe you need to let go.
You let go, and all of a sudden you go, oh my gosh, I do feel freer because now I'm not attached to that as my source. It's a resource, but I've realigned with who my source is, and I'm able to enjoy all the resources He's given me because I'm not finding my identity in them. I'm not finding my security, my comfort, my acceptance. Like, I'm not finding any of those things in it any longer, which allows me to run free.
100%. And we've even, last like little thing on this is like, we've even done it moving from about the same square footage of house. Our garage is bigger at our other house, but we're letting go and getting rid of some more things, and then looking at the walls and the shelves, because you tend to fill them up. If you have shelf space, you tend to fill them up. If you have wall space, you tend to put stuff all over the walls or whatever. So we're looking at it and being like, I actually really enjoy the simplicity of not having it, because we didn't have 3 of our containers for about a week. And you're like, I kind of like this. This is kind of freeing, where we don't have the shelves and the walls cluttered with stuff. There's a peace about it.
100%. And I think the same would be true about our calendars, right? Most of us are just maxing out, and I'm guilty. Like, I'm a maxer. And the days that I'm starting to give myself some time to breathe makes me more patient with the kids. I'm more patient with my clients. I'm more patient with myself, right? Like, I believe in being intentional and getting the job done, but even from a calendar perspective, I think from food, I think from our workouts, I think to friendships, I think that this really is an opportunity for all of us to look at, what are we holding on to, manhandling, what resources are we connected to that we're now calling our source, and how can we start living our lives in a way that is freer, because we've grabbed onto this idea that less really could be more.
Yep. And if you're hearing our message and you're like, I get it, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know where to start or what to do, please join our Facebook community if you haven't already. And then Julia just launched, and I'll let you share what you launched, but it's so important to be a part of and around people that can help you to rethink different areas of your life so you can live out your dreams.
Totally. So if you want to join the Facebook group, go to dreamers.community, where we will get you hooked up and started on your journey. And if you today are going, no, I want to go to the next level, I dig what you're throwing down, I want dream hacks, and I actually want the framework to bridge the gap, then join our mastermind group. It's called Dreamstorm, and you can learn more by going to dreamstormwithjulia.com.
Until next time,
dream on.
Dream on.